Hello everyone. Generally, I don't make this sort of sessions, and I will try to stay away from this political, from this actual government bodies, whatever the political stuff. Most of the times, I try to stay away from this sort of things. But I asked myself recently that when I heard this news, I asked myself that why I have started Imaginary Hub. If you read the description at channel's description, if you read the description of Imaginary Hub, I have written that my goal is understanding, explaining, and experiencing the beauty of science. So, at the core, I'm a science nerd. I want you to show some of the cool and beautiful things which are going on in the science community. My goal is to showcase you that. My goal is to show you that science is something more than a classroom and a lab, right? It is more than all of this. And one more thing is that it is one of the beautiful thing that is ever happened to humankind, right? And when I heard this news, I realized that I am showing you, I am teaching you the cool stuff in science. We are learning Java plus DSA, and in future we will learn web development. We will talk about different cool stuff which is going in science community. But as an individual, at the very bottom level, it is my responsibility to address some bad things, some worst things which is going on in science community, in society in general. And I will make this session, I will first of all make my intent very clear. What is my intent from this session, right? What is my goal? Why I am making this video? Why I am shooting this video is that first point is, I don't want any views, I don't want any fame, I don't want anything, but I want people to understand things very fundamentally. I want to make people understand each and everything at a very simple way, in a very simple way. This is my goal. I want to make complex concepts in a very simple way, and this complex concept should get understood by each and every people. This is my end goal, and my intent from this session is to answer a question, which is why in a society, let's say that there is a people, there are some people in the society who you can consider them outliers, and this people will commit some things which is totally outrageous, which is totally unacceptable, and this one of the part of this is rape, right? This set of people commit this thing which I can't take the name repeatedly because YouTube will somehow cut out the reach of this video. It can even ban the video, so I'm not taking that name again and again, but I will write those things on the screen. So this outliers perform some actions, and one of this action is this thing. And when this thing happens in this process, whenever a rape is get committed on a person, whether it might be women or men, when this things happens in this processes, in this action, in some scenarios, in measure of the scenarios, the victim will lose life. The victim who has suffered all this shit will lose life, right? And after this shit happened, after the victim has lost life, we as a part of society, all of the sudden we realize that it is our responsibility, it is my responsibility, and we will put stories, we will put Instagram stories, we will start protesting on roads, and we will start rallies, we will start parades in society on roads. And because of this protest, the democracy get disturbed, right? Before this incident, the democracy was in flow, the democracy was going in a smooth flow, and when this thing happened, democracy, the flow of democracy got disturbed. And because the democracy flow is getting disturbed, there is a inbuilt pressure which gets created on government. So on government, the pressure will get created, and because of this pressure, the judicial systems, the courts will come in place, and they will try to give justice. I am quoting the name justice, the word justice here. We try to give justice to a person who is no more. You cannot imagine that how much the person who has lost life in this thing can change the world. You cannot imagine the amount of world building that this person can do. Because he is no more, you cannot imagine the world he can create. He may have created, right? And we try to give justice to someone who is no more. Think the irony of it. And we will never question the fundamental thing that these outliers who are performing this action, my question is, why? Why these people are committing this thing? Is it something personal to them, or is it something that we should answer, we should ask? As a science community, we should ask this fundamental question. But society will never ask. Society, the people, you guys are putting stories, but you will never ask why these things are happening in the society. What is the reason? What is the fundamental reason because of which this shit is happening? We say that for women the world is unsafe, for women the Indian society is unsafe, but we will never ask why these things is happening. We will never ask that. We will say that for women it is unsafe, the world is unsafe. For men, the world is unsafe. We say that. All of us. I'm not saying that I'm a unique person, I'm an intellectual, all those kind of things, but I'm also, including you, we all of us put Instagram stories. We make sure that after this incident, when the victim is no more, we cannot imagine that the amount of change that this person who is dead, right? After this person is dead, we put Instagram stories, we talk about that, but before that we never ask the question why these things are happening. And in this session, my intent is to answer this why, or at least understand this why. Is it something more natural? We should accept that this is fundamental law, and we should accept that this is what nature is, and these things are going to accept, and we should remove all the laws. We should not put any sort of criminal charges on this person because this is natural, right? Or this is something unpredictable behavior and this should get punished. These people should get punished. Or the why is totally dependent, is totally the reason of this is culture. The culture which we have developed in the society, is the culture is to blame for, or it is the ideology that we have created in the society. My question, my whole intent is to answer this why. Okay, and one more thing is that if you are here to get masala, if you are here to blame government, to blame the judicial system that they are doing it wrong, we should get justice, then this video is not for you. I'm not here to talk about justice. I'm not here to talk about what is wrong, what is right. I am here to talk about the fundamental question that why these things are happening, and the framework which we are using. This is the framework which we are using. Is it complete? Is it complete or incomplete? I am here to talk about whether this thing is complete or incomplete. I am not here to tell what is wrong, what is right. It is totally dependent on you guys. You who are the part of society, you guys should tell what is wrong, what is right. But here I will tell you what is complete and what is incomplete. Okay, I hope you guys are very clear, and if you are here to spread hate, then I will urge you to first of all leave the video. This video is not for you. Here we will talk about more scientific, more fundamental, and I will give you the material which I am using. I will give you all the materials which I am using in this video making process. Okay, and this is purely academic purpose. This is purely educational purpose. We will try to understand at the very biological level what is right, what is wrong, and why these things are happening. Okay, I hope you are very clear with what is my thing, and if you can understand the impact which I am creating by just this one video, right, and if you find this valuable, then I will urge you guys to share this thing with your friend, because if you notice this, then all these things are happening in loop. 12 years back when Nirbhaya case happened, again it became an internet sensation. Right now when this case is getting popular, we are making this as an internet sensation, but these things are happening in loop. People are committing rape and victims are losing their life, and again we are putting Instagram stories, and because of this social protest, physical protest, government will take action on these people, and again the same loop will get continued, but we are never going on to the root. For example, let us say that this is a tree. So we are trying to cut the branches of the tree, but we are not asking what is there at the root. What is the thing which is causing this? We are never asking that. And in this, we are gonna ask, we are trying to analyze and understand that thing. Okay? Now let us talk about the problem. What is the problem? And in most of the scientific studies, I have heard this thing that many of my professors, many of the actual scientists says this thing, that your problem, whatever you are dealing with, your 50% solution of your problem is that you haven't articulated that problem very clearly. So this thing, okay, the problem with this word is that we haven't articulated it properly, and if we try to articulate the thing properly, then 50% of the problem will get solved. We are halfway through in the finding of solution for this problem. If we can articulate the word, the problem correctly, if we can describe the problem correctly, then we are 50% completed in order to finding the solution of that problem. Okay, now what is the problem? What is the articulation of that problem is that first of all we need to understand what is rape. The rape, the definition, if you go with formal definition of rape, then the definition says that rape is something in which there is a person, and this person try to misbehave and try to perform some violent actions, sexual actions against the will of other person, right? There is a male and he is trying to be physical with other person without the consent of that other person, and that person can be both male and female irrespective of gender. When the person tries to be physical, tries to do try to perform sexual intercourse with another person without the consent, without the will of that person, that thing can be considered as a rape. Okay, so here whenever a sexual intercourse happens without consent, and when this without consent things happen, along with this some consequences, some extra actions might get performed, and that extra action is murder, right? Whenever this things happens, whenever a sexual intercourse happens between people, and in that one person who is getting involved in it is not willing to do this sexual intercourse, is not willing to perform this thing, but the person is forcing her to be involved in this. So this sex without consent, we call this thing as violent sex. This violent sex, and when this violent sex happens in this processes, in this whole thing, when this thing happened, some circumstances might arise, and because of this circumstances the victim might lose life, and we call this thing as murder. Okay, now I am interested in this thing, in this sexual intercourse without consent, that only. I am not talking about murder. Murder will become a totally different thing, right? And if I talk about murder, then the lecture will become 2 hours. I don't wanna shoot that thing. I am only interested in this single part, which is sex without consent, that is rape. Violent sex is rape. And my question is, why this sex without consent happens in the society? Why most of the men commit sex without the other male consent? Why they do that? And in some cases few female commit rape, right? Few female perform rape against men, but it is not the general case. In most of the cases, men in Indian society, men are the ones who we blame, because they are the ones who are conducting this sort of activities, who are performing sex without consent, who are involving in sexual intercourse without the woman, without the opposite gender permission. And this act is considered as a rape. Okay, and my question is why? My question is why we are doing it. And to understand why, we need to understand the concept of sex. It is really important to understand what is sex, and one of the problems with sex is that, at very core, here we are starting our lecture, okay? Up to now all these things was an intro. So to understand why a person commits rape, why a person involved in a sexual intercourse without the other person's willingness, is because to answer that we need to understand what is sex. What is the problem with sex in Indian society in general? What is the main problem? And because if we can understand sex properly, then we can somehow give answer to this question, that why men commit rape. Okay, now the question, to answer this question, we need to understand the concept of sex. What is sex? What is the taboo around sex? And how sex is deeply rooted in our culture, in our religion, in our society, right? So let us talk about sex. The problem with sex is that there is no conversation, there is no proper conversation regarding sex in our society. This is the basic problem, that we as a society, we as a parent, we as a friend will never talk about sex publicly. And you have to accept this, that sex is very fundamental. Sex is very fundamental, simple human instinct. Human instinct that you have to accept, that for every man, for every woman, every man, every woman need sex in their life. Without sex, we cannot survive. Not generally, but without sex, men and women become so weird. So sex is very mandatory in every man and every woman life. Okay, and it is the very simple human instinct that you have to accept. You cannot ignore sex. You cannot put sex in a box and throw it away. You cannot do that. There is a need, like for example, there is a human need of food. Without food we cannot survive. Without water we cannot survive. Without air we cannot survive. Similarly, a woman can never survive sex, right? And I'm saying that fundamental thing for human is, one of the fundamental things of human is sex, okay? And without sex we cannot somehow, not I'm saying that completely, but somehow we cannot survive. Sex is the thing which in a human life it is very much needed, okay? It is very much needed. If sex is very human instinct, but the problem is there is no conversation, and when there is no conversation there is no proper articulation of problem, and when there is no proper articulation of problem, when you don't know what the problem is but you are going to find the solution for that. You don't know what the problem is but you are going out to find the answer for that thing, and when you do that, then some violent behavior, some weird actions will get performed in the society, because we haven't articulated the problem yet clearly, but we are going out to find the solution of that problem. This is one of the problem, okay? Now when I see sex, I generally divide sex in 3 different layers, and these 3 are the only layers which you need to understand sex properly, okay? And these 3 layers are: first fundamental layer is biological layer. Biology is the fundamental layer of sex, and on top of biology we give a cultural layer. We give culture on top of it, and on top of culture there is a psychology layer. And if we can understand these 3 layers completely, then we can understand what is sex, and if we can understand what is sex, then we can tell that why some unusual sexual activities get happened in the society, okay? I hope you are with me, okay? Now we need to understand these 3 things, that is biological layer, on top of biological layer we have culture layer, on top of culture we have psychology, right? These 3 are the layers, and it is really important to understand these 3 layers to define what are the working behaviors of these 3 layers, okay? Now before we move on, recently I was talking to one of my colleagues, one of my friends, and that friend is working under a scientist, and there is a discipline called as eschatology. I don't know I'm pronouncing the name correctly or not. The word is eschatology. And eschatology means it is a discipline in which we try to understand the end of world predictions, how the world will get destroyed, how the world will get end, and after human life, is there another world? Is there any heaven or hell? This discipline deals with that, afterlife. What will happen after life? And I come across this very interesting theory that after life, even after death, right, when you go to heaven, I don't know which religion this regarding, but when we go to heaven, we will get 72 virgin women. We will get 72 virgins, and whatever the sex drive we are having, we can fulfill that sex drive with this 72 virgin women. And when I heard this, one of the questions which came to my mind is that, when I will get freedom from sex, right? After death also we are thinking about sex, right? After death also we are forming theories, forming in our religion also, right? I think in Christianity and Islam there is no such concept as sex after death, but there are some hadiths, I don't know particularly, I don't know correctly, but some religions even talk about sex after death. So are you getting it, that at the very deep level of society we have encoded sex, and we have made sex a so important thing which you cannot ignore. Okay, I hope you are getting it, right? And even after life also we are thinking about sex, right? That is how we have made sex the deep, fundamental, innate human thing. Okay, now you need to understand here that sex is very biological thing, is very biological instinct, and as I said that every man and woman need sex in their life. But we humans, we as a society, we are very good at distributing the tools. If you consider sex as a tool, then each and every one of us are very good in distributing the tools. We are very good, we are pro in distributing. Oh, you want sex? Take it. You want sex? Take it. Right? We are very interested in distributing the tools, but we are not ready to understand what is sex, what is the fundamentals. Okay, now what happens is that I said that sex is very biological thing. Everyone wants sex, but in order to distribute it in even order, in order to distribute in a very structured way, we have given another layer for sex. On top of biology we have given another layer, and that layer is culture. That layer is culture. And if I talk about sex in human, sex is in very weird position. Sex is in very weird position. It is in a position between a biological instinct, that is animal instinct, right? Animal instinct and higher cognitive function. Higher cognitive function, that is my human instinct. On these two layers, the top layer is human, which is our higher cognitive function, and at the very bottom we are animals. We are animals, and we are very cruel. When we talk about animals, animals don't have any feelings, right? And sex is in very weird spot between these two. So the sex is in between very weird spot in these two things. Okay, now the problem with sex is that the problem can be divided into three layers. The layer one is biological layer, the layer 2 is cultural layer, and the layer 3 is psychological layer. And if we can try to analyze these three layers, then we can give a meaning to sex, and we can talk about how we can avoid this unusual activities in the society. Okay, now let us start with biological layer. Talking about biology, let me put this in a side. So talking about biology, in our genes, you need to understand that we are very encoded. We are encoded with sex. We are encoded with sex, but in our genes, sex is there for continuation, not for pleasure, right? Sex is there to cause a continuous effect. In order to grow our human species, we have encoded the genes. In our genes, we have encoded sex to cause a continuation effect. So for continuation, we have encoded in our genes sex, but not for pleasure. The sex which we are doing is the main work of that sex is to cause a continuation effect, not pleasure. But if you see evolution of humankind in back then, in Stone Age time, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough humans in the world. So in order to cause a recurring continuation effect, we have associated pleasure with sex, right? Because to cause a recurring continuation effect in the society back then, we have associated pleasure with sex. Okay, and right now also, all the people, you and me and everyone else who is watching this video, we somehow associate pleasure with sex. And here, this is not our problem, this is not something that we should blame for, but this is totally the problem of evolution. In evolution, when we are evolving as human species, when we wanted to increase the number of species in humankind in order to cause this continuation effect, we have generally associated pleasure with sex. And that is why, if you notice this thing very clearly, whenever casual sex happens among people, in that also we show some reproductive sex behavior. In that also we try to simulate the behavior of reproductive sex, right? In that also we try to give some reproductive sexual behavior. And one more thing is that if I talk about biology, for men and women, the conditions of these two species, the two men and women, are different. Because the conditions are different, reproductive conditions are different for men and women. That is, men can have infinite gamete, right? Men can have infinite resources. The sexual resources of men are infinite. Whenever they want, they can cause this continuation effect. But for women, they understand that the sexual resources they are having are limited. The sexual resources these persons are having are limited, and they cannot generate a continuation effect infinitely. And because of this thing, these two things, that is, for women they have limited sexual resource, for men they have infinite sexual resource. Because of this small difference, the patterns, the way they approach towards sex is different. Even though the overall thing towards sex is same for men and women, at the end they want pleasure, but at the very tip of these two things, they want different things. They want different things from sex, right? And I know that this lecture is becoming very bored, but if you stick around, then we can find very beautiful things in this. Okay, so here you need to understand that because of this infinite thing, a man in a given period of time, he can impregnate n number of women. He can impregnate 1 woman, 2 women, 3 women, n number of women in a period of time. But whereas for women, they are only limited with some resources, and if they involve in a sexual activity, then they understand that they cannot involve in sexual activities further for next 9 months. For next 9 months, they are going to be in a very vulnerable conditions. They cannot have the physical strength. They cannot do the things which a general men can do because of this vulnerability. Because when they involve in this general vulnerable conditions, they are going through some sort of vulnerable conditions. And after 9 months, the baby will get born, right? And for this baby, they need to take care for 10 years, right? And because of this structural difference, the strategies which they use, the strategies which men and women use to achieve sex is different. Okay, I hope you are getting it. And because of this thing, the strategies are different, and these strategies cause all the difference at the very basic level. That is, men want variety. Men want variety, and because men has infinite gambit, because men can impregnate n number of women at a time, what they seek at, I'm talking about very animal level, I'm talking about very animal level, I'm not going into human level. We are here at biological level. After it we will move to cultural level. After it we will move to psychological level. Okay, because of this thing they want variety. At a very animal level they want variety. They want that, okay, I will impregnate this woman, this woman, this woman, this woman, like this they will think. For women, you need to understand that for women, whenever they are encountering a sexual intercourse, they understand that their circumstances are different from men. When they involve in sex, they understand that for next 9 months they are going to be in a super vulnerable conditions, and because of vulnerable conditions they seek men who are very stable. So men seek women seek stability, women seek protection, women seek status, women seek men who are very competent, right? These are the things that women want, and men want variety. Women want person, women want people, a man who is very physically strong, who is strong physically, because they understand that for next 9 months they are going to be in vulnerable conditions, and they need men who can protect them from all the physical forces of the world. And because of this, women seek stability, women seek status, women seek power, and men seek variety. Men get very visual, they want beautiful women, whereas women want powerful men, right? This is the fundamental thing. This is the fundamental thing you need to understand in human behavior, in biological behavior. And because of this nature, our evolution, our mankind has evolved. And if you notice the right moment, if you notice in the current moment, for example, some women like some type of men, and some men like some type of women, and generally men want women who are beautiful, who are physically appealing, and women want men who are generally strong. If they are physically strong, if they are very intelligent, if they can handle the physical forces, and if they can give you a commitment, if they can give you a promise, right? This sort of men women want, right? And men want women who are very appealing, physically appealing. Okay, and even though the logic of sex is same, that is, at the end we want pleasure, at the end both men and women seek pleasure, but the strategies, the logic which they go through is different. I hope you are getting it. The logic which they go through is different, and because of this biological thing, because of this fundamental animal instinct, it causes a destability in the ecosystem, right? And if you study evolution in animal kingdom, when animals, that is chimpanzees, animals, all those humankind were evolving, all men don't get resources, don't get sexual pleasure, but all women got sexual pleasure, but half of the men get resources to sex. And one of the reasons to that is women control sexual behavior, women control sexual continuation, women control species, women control at what level who they should get mate from. And as I said that women seek power, women seek status, women only mate with men who are more compatible, who are more physically powerful because they want to seek some sort of commitment, some sort of promise, and they want to seek protection. Okay, and in this system, the problem with biological system is that some men who are powerful will get resources to all sex, okay, and all the women will get sexual resources. But in this system, there are few men who are weak, who are not that much, physically strong, and for this sort of men, they become unpredictable, they become angry, they become psychos in the society. Okay, because as I said that every man and woman want sex, and when these men who are weak, who don't have any commitment, who don't have any compatibleness, who don't have any physical appeal, they don't get sexual resources. And when they don't get sexual resources, they will become psycho, they will do some sort of unpredictable behavior, they will do some sort of unpredictable actions. And this is where violent sex, this is where killing, this is where murder takes place. Here this weak man kills the strong man in the tribe. This weak man forcefully performs sexual activities with women, right? Here, whoever the weak men who are left in the society, they will commit some sort of unusual things with the both men and women in the tribe, right? So in order to avoid this unsustainability, in order to avoid the destability in the system, we have introduced culture, and we have introduced the concept of culture. And culture will tell us that every man should get sexual resources, every woman should get the pleasure, the drive of sex. Okay, and in biological system, only few men were getting all the sex in the world, and in order to avoid this destability in the system, we have introduced the concept of culture. Okay, and in culture we have introduced a concept called as meme, right? And this meme is very different to your social meme, right? And this meme is related to more biology. There is before our internet meme was existing, before that we were having a concept called as meme, and in that we have introduced a concept called as monogamy. I'm writing the spelling mistakes wrong, I know. In this monogamy concept, this tells that only a single male with a single female, and the culture tells us that how sex will be distributed, sex will get distributed in the society. And here we have introduced the concept of monogamy. Monogamy is nothing but a single male with a single female for lifelong. Whenever they want sex, they can interact with this, and from this concept we have introduced the concept of marriage. We have introduced the concept of marriage here. Okay, and the monogamy concept, I don't say that it is completely right, it is working 100% correctly, but it is somewhat stable when compared to polygamy, when compared to the biological system that we are having back here in the system, in the biology system. Only few strong men were getting all the sexual resources. In order to avoid that, we have given another layer for sex, and that layer is culture. And culture tells you that how sexual resources will get divided among men, among women, and this cultural thing will tell you that how sex will get distributed among men and women. Okay, and polygamy were unsustainable system. In this system, both men and women were suffering to get sexual resources, but in monogamy we have given the tools of how a marriage should be. Every man should get married, should have the benefit of, should get the pleasure of sex, right? And I consider this thing is very good. Monogamy is working really good in the modern times. Monogamy is working really good, and In some circumstances, people do commit cheating, people do commit polygamy, but monogamy 80% of the time working correctly. Okay, but after introducing the concept of monogamy, we did a worst thing, and that worst thing is, we decided in culture, we have decided to put sex on mute. We thought that, oh, we will give some age to sex, you should be 18, you should have minimum age barrier to have the pleasure of sex. And after that, in society, we thought that if we don't talk about sex, if at the core, if we don't talk about sex with our child, with our friend, with our teachers, with our students, if we don't talk about sex, if we somehow take the sex and put in a box and throw it away, if we don't talk about sex, if we put sex in silent, then we can suppress sex. And this is the core problem of everything which is happening in the society. I have told you that the rape is happening, and this is the root cause of each and everything, which is the baddest decision. We thought that if we try to put sex on mute, then we can somehow avoid sex, we can somehow suppress sex. And because of this silence and suppression, this thing resulted in repression and perversion. From this we got power, people. From this repression happened, from this perversion happened. And when this thing happens now, when repression and perversion happens, and one more thing is that, for example, when in a society everyone knows about a thing, but no one is ready to talk about that, and when something becomes an open secret in the society, then when a thing happens to be an open secret, then from that toxic rules emerges. From that, some rules emerges in the society which are not very well crafted, which are not very well thought out rules, right? And because of this silence, it causes repression, and because of this suppression, it causes perversion. And because of this repression and suppression, it emerged, it has generated some rules in the society, and these rules are not very well crafted, well cultured rules. These rules are not very thought of rules. We have just randomly created these rules, and because of this thing, sex has become an open secret, that in all of us in a class, all of us are thinking about sex, but no one is ready to talk about sex, right? And when something becomes an open secret in the society, that everyone knows about sex, but no one will talk about sex, right? And when these things happens, some toxic rules will get emerged, some toxic behavior will get generated, will get induced in the society. And because of this, we will give our entire life thinking about sex. We will give our entire lifetime spending time on sex, and we consider sex as a status game. We consider sex as a status game. For example, I have told you that in biological layer, women only mate with men who are powerful. So if a woman is having sex with me, is having sex with a man, then men consider sex as a status symbol. Very few men consider sex as a status symbol, but most of the men consider, if they are having sex with another woman, then they consider that thing as a status symbol. They tell their friends that, oh, I am having sex with this woman, how powerful I am, my status is so much better than you guys are, right? So we consider sex as a status symbol. And one more thing is that from this open secret, we somehow promote pornographic content. pornographic content, and there is no proper education regarding this. And if you consider that, if you observe that NoFap becomes the internet sensation, right? In November, in Twitter, Instagram, all the platforms, we are trending, we are making sure that NoFap is trending on the internet. Think how toxic, how illogical it is, right? Somewhere we are promoting some illogical thing, right? And when this thing becomes an internet sensation, and this thing is coming from this toxic mentality, bro, and from this toxic mentality we induce some weird circumstances, we generate some weird circumstances in the society. And here I am telling you a line, and I know that this line will gonna affect you all. That line is, India as a society has failed when it comes to talking about sex. You know, we thought that if we suppress, if we put sex on silence, then we can emerge a good society, we can create a good society. But you need to understand that suppression of sex has generated repression, has generated perversion, has generated distortion among men, among women, right? All our life, all our adult life, we are thinking about sex. We are in our head, we are thinking all the time about sex. We are thinking that this woman is beautiful, and if I can have sex with her, then my life would become so much good. But believe me when I say that, it is wrong. It is wrong. It is totally in your head. All you have to do is that do not suppress sex. And we as a society, we as a Indian society has somewhere deep down failed when it comes to talking about sex. And this trilogy which is biology tells you what is what is what, and you cannot change biology, you cannot change nature. It is the nature, and you have to accept that woman has limited resources, man has infinite resources, and to control this sexual behavior, to control the flow and distribution of biological sex, we have introduced culture. And culture tells you that how sex will get distributed, how to distribute sex. We have introduced culture, and when we introduce culture, deep down somewhere it affects our psychology. It affects our psychology will get affected, and when psychology will get affected, again some biology will get affected, and because of biology culture will change, and because of culture again psychology will get changed, and this thing will happen continuously. But the only disease I blame to everything, which is the disease of silence. The disease of silence has make sex a crippled society. We have crippled our sex society. So this silence has made sex as a crippled society, and because of this our psychology got affected at the very fundamental level. As an individual, we have affected our psychology, right? And because of this effect, this psychological effect, what are the consequences is that the first consequence is I think of whenever I think of psychological effect on sex is, first one is we consider sex as escapism. We consider sex as escapism. What I mean by is that whenever we are stressed, whenever we are in anxiety, whenever we are in hard times, we watch porn, we masturbate, and we consider sex as an escapism. And believe me, in long run it will never help you. right? Basically you have a set of problems, and because of this set of problems you are using another way. Whenever a person consumes drug, whenever a person consumes a cigarette or a alcohol, right, if you ask them why you are doing this, he will tell you that my life is very bad, my life sucks, and because to escape that I am consuming this, I am consuming alcohol. Okay, similarly you are using pornographic content, you are using porn as an escapism, and it will haunt you but it will not help you. So this is the first point. And the second point is that people use sex as an hedonic drive. Hedonism, right? Hedonic drive. We make our desires so much, we in our head think that if I get sex from that woman, from that man, then my life will get fulfilled. I will get so much pleasure. All the desires will get fulfilled from this single, solely one activity. In our head, psychologically, we think like that. But believe me when I say that it is not the answer. It is not the thing. In your life, a human desires will not get completed ever. Right? So the second point is using sex as a hedonic drive. It's not gonna help you. Sex will make your life hollow. If you have excessive sex in life, then it will make your life hollow and you will never get fulfillment from that thing. Okay, and the third point is that status symbol. Many people consider sex as a status symbol, and in this case many men think of women, right? They consider that if they got sex from this woman, then they are high status. But it is not the case. In some cases it might be, but in most of the things, in averages, it is not the case at all. Okay, and one more thing is that when you use sex as an status symbol, you will consider yourself as a species who is above than women. You consider that men are above women, but actually it is not the case. You need to understand that men and women are fundamentally, biologically different, but they are not above or beneath than one another. When you do that, this is the ideology of a rape mindset, right? Rape mindset. Whenever you ask, there is an interesting book called as Against Will. I don't know, I can't recall the name of the author, but in that book Against Will, it is about rape, it is about why people commit rape. But in that author, one of the psychologists asked hundreds of rapists, right, why did you commit rape and do you feel guilty about it? And most of the men answered one thing, that I am above men and I need to show my power. I need to show her that I am above than you are. Right? You men are considering that you are above than me, but I am men. I am more than you. Right? Whenever you make sex as a status symbol, then you will innately assume that you men are above than women, and this is the creation, this is the starting point of a rapist mindset. Okay, now the fourth point is that perversion, and here I am talking about excessive sex. Whenever you want excessive sex from life, then from perversion mainly four things happens. That is, you will get addicted to porn. Some people, I am telling you that this is fact, that some people find virtual sex so much better than actual physical sex. Right? They will find peace, not peace but pleasure, unethical pleasure in virtual sex rather than having physical sex. Right? So they will get porn addict, and they will get pedophilia, They will start thinking about non-consent sex and violent sex. This are the, from perversion, this are the four things. And if you notice, non-consensual and violent sex are the symptoms, are the ones who are considered as a rape, right? And from psychology, people become rapists, right? And this is just study, these are just study, and I hope you have understood that three layers: biological layer, cultural layer, and psychological layer, right? And I hope you have understood where the rapist mindset is being created, what is the starting point where a rapist mindset is getting born. Okay, and what is the answer? Oh Guruji, you have given me all the things, right? Now what is the answer to this? The answer is that start moderately. Moderation is your answer. If you want to explore sex, then my answer is go and explore sex, but not completely, not at the extreme end. There is a concept called as anchor and adjust, anchoring and adjusting, right? So whenever you are starting, don't start from zero, don't start at infinite, start somewhere at the middle and make your anchoring here, anchor here, and from this move to the next point, and from the next point move to the next further point. Directly don't go to the extreme mindset. If you want to explore sex, then start moderately, start averagely, talk. The solution, the best answer I can give you is generalize sex. Talk about sex like with your friends, with your family, talk with your parents that I want to understand sex, how sex will feel like. Talk with your teachers, talk with your parents, teachers, friends, all those kind of things, and do not hesitate, right? Hesitation, when you think that people will make fun of you, let them make fun of you, but do not stop asking questions, do not stop understanding science, right? And when you don't ask proper question, when you don't articulate problem correctly, then it will cause, believe me my friend, it will cause a lot of consequences, and one of the consequences is rape, right? I hope you are getting it. Generalize sex, generalize in societies, talk about sex, don't put sex on mute. I know some people gonna laugh at me when I upload this video. Somewhere deep down some people will laugh at me, but they don't understand the impact, my intentions at the core. Okay, anyways, this is becoming 1 hour long again. So the second point is talk, and the third point is freedom and responsibility. You know, be responsible, be a responsible citizen. Think twice or thrice whenever you are committing. I'm talking about all the men out there. Whenever you see a single woman on street, don't think about sex, because believe me, sex is a single part. There are a lot of things. If you want to really want sex from that woman, then ask her out, ask her whether she is comfortable or not, ask her whether she is interested or not. And if you really want sex from a beautiful woman, then become worthy, become a worthy man. The people who commit rape, the people who force women to commit, sex with other women forcefully, they are weaklings. In psychology, there is a concept called as weakling, which tells about a weak man. Weak men are the ones who are going to destroy our society, bro. And believe me, you don't want to be a weak man. You are here, you are born to become a strong man. Okay, anyways, I have told you the answer is anchoring and adjustment, moderation, talk with people, and freedom and responsibility. Take the freedom and responsibility. Think twice and thrice. Whenever you are getting this kind of thoughts in your head, then think twice and thrice. And if you really want sex from that woman, then become worthy. Become a worthy man, become a strong man, because I have told you, in biology, you can see that women want strong men. Women want status. Because of women, we have created the concept of status. Right? So become a worthy man. Become a man who is responsible, who takes responsibility, who protects her. Right? So with that being said, I will stop here, and I hope you have understood from where a rape mindset is starting. From where, what are the consequences, what are the causes, what are the things you should consider before putting a story on Instagram. Anyways, I will stop here, and if you find any value from this, I know I have bored you guys, I know I have made this lecture very boring, very slow, very boring, but I felt that there is a need, there is an importance to me, and it is my responsibility, so I made this. And if you find this anything valuable, then I say that share this with your friend, family, and let them know the science beyond it. So with that being said, I will see you in the next one.